Hi YouTube, how are you doing? I'm doing okay, not too bad. Um, I'm going to talk a little bit about tactics of if the people aren't narcissists, then, whether they're like borderline or schizophrenic or just not very nice people, you'll they'll use your patience, which isn't always a virtue, by the way, because they'll use it against you. The hundreds of times I've had people play on my kindness and my patience with them, with the multiple times I've seen tears or um, apologies, like they throw apologies out like breadcrumbs that's going to appease you till the next time they disrespect you. And I've been tallying up the disrespect because I don't take kindly to it, and we've been conditioned and taught to overlook these things, these traits that are dark tetrad traits that people do. We have been conditioned to overlook them so we can be taken advantage of. And that's exactly why I'm talking about it today. So, cheers, everybody. Oops, it's kind of full. Just a sec. Whoa. Mm. I just got through doing some push ups, and my arm was like, don't use me right now. You did enough. Yeah. I, oh, I did. I did enough. I didn't do too many. I did 30 and um 3 claps in there if you can clap when you're doing push-ups. It it's not easy to do. Let's just put it that way. So one day I got 7 claps in on my last bit of 30. I went into the third one and I thought I'm going to clap for all the rest of them, when I'm doing my push-ups. So yeah, was impressive. My ex could do, well, both my exes could do one-hand push-ups. The father of my kids um, would do push-ups with me on his back, and he could do push-ups on his fingertips and clapping push-ups. And yeah, we had a AJ Octa gym um, back in the day when home gyms weren't really common, but we were ahead of the curve with the physical fitness thing, you know. Anyway, when I first met Doug, he picked me up in my chair. Well, it wasn't when I first met him. It was after I was dating him. He picked me up in my chair. I'm sitting there like in the air flailing, and he's in back of me with picking me up in my chair. I'm like, put me down. It's strong, you know. So, but then, like with my ex, we were both dancers, and um, he wasn't a martial artist, but he was a dancer, and I could just go like flying at him, and he'd catch me, and so I did at one time in my life have a lot of enjoyment. I had a dance partner until Satan got to him. Satan's like, "Oh, I love you, Twinkle Toes," and my ex was like, "I love you too, buddy." you know, yeah, old Twinkle Toes and Satan, what a pair. So yeah, when you get disrespected too much in life, by the same person or people, after a while, apologies don't mean anything, just changed behavior. If they keep doing the same thing all the time and then saying they're sorry for it, sometimes you don't even get an apology. But the skilled ones, they'll apologize unless they know that it's not going to do any good. And I anticipate that's probably what's coming next. I mean, the ignorance and the coldness. They have set agendas of what they try to do to control people. And if they can't control you with being kind in return, they'll use their coldness and hope that you will crumble under the weight of being ignored, you know. And it's like, no, that's not going to work on me. I'm surrounded by ignorance, not entire ignorance, but ignorance to certain facts that um my well-being doesn't fit into their plans, just like the Masons when they tried to take my life several times, not just a couple, but so many times the dark force tried to um, use people against me and poison me. And really, um, I was roofied a couple times. I mean, who would think? And I was drinking a Pepsi, and all of a sudden I was like just totally incapacitated. I went in my car and locked the doors and laid down in the back seat until it passed. I was a real young woman at that time. 17 or 18, somewhere around in there. So, I mean, and I locked the doors. I laid down in there, and there was people out in the parking lot looking around, and I didn't move. I like sucked into my back seat. Big old car too, so with dark seats, and I had dark clothes on. So I blended in. Lucky me, I wasn't wearing something like yellow or white or whatever that night, because I'm sure um, they probably would have broke into my car. If they were set to do something, it was in this weird little, it was like a dance hall combination restaurant. There's a lot of them in Montana where it's just your recreation spot. And I think the owners of that place, which was an older couple, and they had a son, I think they were fully aware that their son, or she was aware that her husband and her son were involved in harming young women. I think they did that on a regular basis, you know. So, because they were really surprised the next time I came in there and they were all looking at me weird and everything, and not that I was going in there to leave my drink unattended, but again, but somebody must have distracted me, and I think it was her, and she was behind the bar, and her husband was out on the dance floor, and her son was on the other side of the bar where I was too. And I don't know if she was talking to me or her husband or what it was, but somebody had um, got my attention so they could slip something. They had to have, because I didn't have any smoke. I didn't drink. I wasn't even smoking cigarettes then. I had quit for a year. I started when I was 5. Um, I started full time about 15, but in between there, like 12 and whatever, I did a lot of smoking. But but yeah, I wasn't smoking cigarettes. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't smoking herb. Nothing. All I had was a soda. You know. So yeah. Yeah, you can't trust people like you want to nowadays, can you? Not even your own family. They can be used if they have just self-centered ways about them. That's who they are. We have to remember that people are who they show us to be, and no amount of patience is going to take away the disrespect that they show continuously, you know. So it's sad but true. So I've been tallying it up. I used to use a 3-strike rule like baseball. Like if you lie to me or disrespect me 3 times or whatever it is, if you bother me in some way more than 3 times, you're out of my life. Now, it just depends on the grievance. If it's something, the first time somebody does something shady or whatever to me, that's it. But now I'm confronted with people saying they're sorry. They got something wrong, then they're sorry and ask for my patience. I don't have too much of that left anymore. You would think the older you get, the more patience you would gather, you know. Not necessarily so. Um, just, I mean, I don't care what society has conditioned people to believe, but enough's enough, you know. There is many groups of people, not just women, but women in particular that are just standing up with that mama bear attitude. We're sick of all the lying and deceiving, and I mean, everybody is, don't get me wrong, but the women where they used to be more passive are being more combative for self-preservation, you know. And the times that they've tried to kill me or do bad things to me, and sometimes they got away with it, you know. But that's my preservation. That freaks them out. That if you try to kill somebody or do something bad to somebody, or if you try and drug them or um, choke them or whatever it is, and it doesn't work out for you the way you think. Like the funniest thing, I had this dude coming at me with a front kick in judo. It's just real quick, you know. He's coming through the air, and I grabbed his leg and jacked him, and he hit the ground, and I went to stomp like on his neck, like I didn't, but I had my foot there. I said, "Are you done now?" You know. But you can just see that's intuition and instincts too. Seeing things, even their moves, anticipating what they're going to do next. You have to. When you're in a war, if you can use your insight, especially if they don't have insight, selfish people don't have insight. They can only guess, but they don't get visions of things that are. And they know I do. So, yeah. So I'm telling you, patience isn't a virtue. I'm not dealing with little children where I have to be careful, like not light a cigarette in a closed room with my baby or whatever, or watching the language that I use in front of a little person. No, I'm talking to adults that mean to harm me out of their own selfishness. No, I don't have patience for you. That's why I stopped nursing too. And well, most of it was um, working around some really bad diseases and going home to my kids and with my ex and not being able to find a babysitter and all kinds of crazy things. We ended up homeless, and then I just decided after that I'm probably not going to do it. I had done it for a couple decades. It's like I'm not doing this anymore. People can take care of themselves, you know. Um, this one woman, we had wore gloves when we worked with her, but she had vaginal drainage and it was unidentified. Figured that one out, you know. So I think that's when the beginning of SARS and Morgellons and the superbugs is what they call them. If you're new here, when I was 12, I found little vials in 3 different cases under a stairway that was hidden in the Masonic Lodge. And one of them was a metal case, and the other were two, and they had things in there like anthrax and polio. And this is God's honest truth. And I got in trouble because the door was made out of a piece of paneling, and I didn't get it put back the right way. And my dad was the Grand Master, so he was in charge of the whole place. So I don't know why he noticed it or if he noticed it right away or what it was. But then they took all those cases to the Halloween capital of the world, which is in Anoka, Minnesota. It's called Anoka. And a big lodge there, and then from there went to Pennsylvania, and from there it went to Singapore. And I sat and I'd hear my dad talking to these people in Singapore on the phone, the same way I learned to decode his blue book, just by watching him and listening, you know. But yeah, I got in a lot of trouble. I had to ride along with him when he took them vials to that Masonic lodge in Anoka, and he was so pissed. And the other guy that met him looked at me like he wanted to kill me too. And and that is, well, that's one time that year he tried to run me over with the boat. But it's just like God scooped me out of the way in the water. I was trying to get away. He was backing up with a 40-horse motor in the propeller right by my leg because I had helped get the boat off the trailer like I always did, and wanting to be in the water first because I was a water bug. Yeah. So, um, yeah, I know I have divine forces watching over me. That's not the only time. One time I was hanging off a 4,000-foot cliff and my ex grabbed me. He didn't want to grab me, but he grabbed me, and I could see that another force behind him told him to do that. He didn't want to. I was throwing this big rock. It was about 40 pounds. And I went to throw it over this cliff because we were throwing rocks at this river that was way down there. And I went off with the rock. I let go of it, but it was just the force of the weight of the rock and me throwing it that I didn't really propel forward. I just kind of went with it. And a split second, I looked up. My ex didn't want to catch me, but then he reached his arm just that quick. Everything happened. It's the freakiest thing in the world. I got all kinds of stories like that. Yeah. But the disrespect, I can't tolerate it. I really don't care if people are selfish and they're not around me. But when they're in my life and they expect me to go on business as usual, nothing's wrong, I can do or say anything I want. And if it harms you, I don't care. Well, I'm done with that. When it harms me, you don't care, but I care. And then I have to take steps to make sure that doesn't happen again, to protect myself. Yeah, my feelings to me, they're important. And I don't care if it's family or who it is. I don't do disrespect, and sorries don't cut it. Only changed behavior will, you know. And if you don't value me, get the go away from me. Keep it away from me. Don't come back. Because obviously I value myself more than I value you, and more than you value me. Yeah. So yeah, tally up those disrespects. They're not by accident. People do these things. Maybe sometimes, I mean, I could see, um, like especially if you're first getting to know somebody, they may not know what's going to offend you, or they may say something not knowing the facts behind a situation. That type of thing I can see. I can give a little leeway for something that's said that could be in a disrespectful light. But when somebody's a known shady person and they continually do and say things that harm you, when I mean, your heart scars when it's hurt. There's it deadens, it's like poking the same muscle. If you have a nerve ending and you keep poking it in the same spot, you're going to injure it. The same with your heart. Yes, hearts physically break. And then they fill in with a dark, cold spot. It's like if you've ever injured a muscle, the nerve endings will move. You can rebuild nerve endings within your flesh. But if you harm like a muscle or a tendon in your heart's a muscle, it builds up a hard spot where it used to be pliable. And that's just what happens. I'm not playing. This is all physical science. This is physics, people. This is biology. This is what our bodies and what our hearts do. It's self preservation. You know, these are the times we are in. No, that is the armor of God, the breastplate. Why do you think that's there? It's to protect you from the people that don't mean you well. They don't wish you well. So you got to put up a shield where you normally wouldn't, you know. And the one person I'm thinking of in particular is related to me and keeps hurting me and hurting me and hurting me, expecting that, well, it just doesn't matter to them. And when you realize that, you have to make decisions for yourself. Do you continue getting stabbed in the heart, or do you walk away so the pain ends? You know, so yeah, that's where I'm at. I choose to distance myself from the disrespect and just let the people that are wielding that dark force um, dwell in their darkness by themselves. They're not going to pull me down there, that's for sure. And I won't engage in arguments with people, nothing like that. I mean, if there's an argument to be had that's truth versus lies types of things, and it involves people where my keeping silent would cause more harm than it would good, then I would speak up on something. But if it's just a personal issue, um, I've learned to just let it go. There's nothing, I can't change anybody, and I'm not going to ask them to change. I'm not going to beg anybody for anything. I'll never beg for love. Never. I'll, I don't chase, I replace. So it's the way it is, you know. So I've had people that would rather keep me um, isolated so they can control me. And I'm about ready to break free in some big ways that people don't realize how badly they really screwed up. And they're not going to know it until it's all over. But if my begging and pleading and crying and whatever through the decades hasn't mattered to anybody, then, you can only do so much in your life with a person till you finally have to say, hey, there's just nothing I can do here. There is no way that I can help this person out of their darkness because they're liking it in the dark, you know? Jesus was a mushroom, right? A fungus, yeah. A organism from not from this planet. I believe that's true. So, so what do you think about patience? Virtue or not a virtue? I say they think we're weak because we have patience with them. Yeah, it's a big joke to people that use that patience thing against us. Yeah, they're laughing at us. So I'm not laughing back. And none of it, even their downfall, it doesn't give me glee. It's sad, but there's nothing, my hands are tied. There's nothing I can do about it. Well, my hands aren't literally tied, but yeah, metaphorically. For the person who said, like, my language is the Greek, typically and basically, that's why I studied all the English derivatives, derivatitions of the Greek. All, see, with the Masons, they use the second and third definitions of a word and they connect into other things. It's a system. The code that goes with the blue book and the Webster, Merriam-Webster dictionary, period, and only the King James New Testament, period. It's coded in their blue book and in those other books, and they all work together. And it can show you where a word came from, just like the etymology, only way deeper, deep. And that's why my vocabulary is like it is. Because I used to read the dictionary when somebody else might have been reading comic books, you know, or whole sets of encyclopedias and atlases and whole libraries. And really, I went through a whole library recording everything with the Dewey Decimal System with our librarian in my school. And I always had books. Um, Sometimes at least two or three a week. I mean, just mass quantities of reading material, continuous. Some science fiction, but I wasn't allowed to. Like if we got 5 books every 2 weeks, I had to have 3 of them had to be nonfiction, you know. So anyway, that's my topic for today. Patience is a weakness, and they're laughing at us because of it. And we've been taught that patience is a virtue. Who said that? You know, like I said, we're not dealing with little children here. We're dealing with full-grown adults that aren't considering other people when they choose to do their harm. And we got to look at what they do, not what they say. So I love you all. Thank you for joining me. Peace and love from Pine City, Minnesota, USA. Have a good night or day wherever you're at.